Hey everybody, welcome to another new video, and today's video is again not going to be about wardrobe or really about inventory. Today we are going to be talking about landscaping and terraforming. I actually got this request from somebody in the wardrobe group who was coming back to Second Life and getting back into her inventory and into owning land, and sort of made a comment that terraforming wasn't her strong suit. And it's something that I absolutely love. At the end of my last video, I sort of showed off my parcel. And here's a kind of a broader look at it. This is my coffee shop, I guess I kind of call it that. I used to have a coffee shop a long time ago in Second Life, so this is sort of my recreation of that, and it's more of a hangout, I guess, than a pure coffee shop. But if you look inside of this building here, I've got my coffee stuff set out, or at least some of it. It's always a work in progress. And I actually love landscaping more than decor, so it takes me a longer time to do the decor inside. But this is my parcel, and what I want to talk about today is really two things. The first is going to be to talk about terraforming and how you can make your land the way you want it to be and use all the different terraforming tools. And then the second thing I'll talk about is just sort of my design philosophy as it comes to landscaping in Second Life. Most of the parcels that I build now are sort of this mixed woodland type of look, lots of trees and shrubs and grasses and stuff. Not really a complete forest, but a little bit forested. Kind of mixed woodland, I guess is what I would call it. And so they generally look like this. So I have a very distinct set of different landscaping materials, but the same things would hold true if you did beaches or actual forests or really whatever you wanted to build. Even just a small garden could hold true. So today we're going to look at those two things. I want to start with one thing that I'm not going to be able to show you on the parcel that we're going to be working on, but I want to talk about it because I think it's really, really important. So when you're getting ready to terraform your land, it is the best possible thing to do is to start with something that's nice and flat. But a lot of people make it both flat and too low to the ground. A good rule of thumb, and this is my recommendation for everybody as a starting point, is to make the primary flat area of your land. So this, if you look up here at the top of this over here, the primary flat area of my land is between 23 and 24 meters, or more specifically, between 3 and 4 meters above water level. So the default water level for regions in Second Life is 20 meters. And so this land here is, I think, a little bit over 23 meters tall. Why do you want to do this? So if you've ever gone to regions and seen where the area where the land meets the water is super jagged and rough and broken up and not smooth at all, the reason for that is that they made their land too low. It's not high enough. The tools in Second Life for terraforming need land to work with, because really what they're doing is bending and stretching and growing the land. And if there's not enough room there to bend and to stretch, I mean, if you think of a piece of rubber, for example, and you bend it or stretch it too much, it starts to crack. And that's the same thing that's happening when you have your land too low. And so you really want to start, like I said, about 3 to 4 meters above your water level, so that you have enough room to work with. And if you do want to create a beach, in my case, this is more like a riverbank, and so it does have a bit of a gentle slope leading down into the water. But if you do want to have something that's more beach-like, you can actually step it down, so you have 23 at the top, and then maybe some that's flattened out to 22, and so on, and then let it sort of gradually come down in. And that's a much better way to do it than to try and put it all at 20 and keep it flat and then try and get it smooth. Okay, so yeah, so that's my parcel, my primary parcel. But I also have this other one over here, which is up on top of this hill. And there's nothing here right now, because this is where my skybox is. So we're going to go ahead and play with this land a little bit. And when you're thinking about terraforming, like I said, you want to start with something that's pretty flat. So I've gone ahead and flattened this out, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But what you really want to do is bring open your terrain tools. So I'm just going to right click on my parcel and go to edit terrain. And this is on the build tool. It's this little bulldozer at the end. This is just the standard build tool that you get for any object for the most part, but it's got this terraforming land tool at the end. And our options are up here at the top. Here's what we can do. We can flatten land, we can raise it, we can lower it, we can smooth it, we can roughen it, or we can revert it, bring it back to the way it was. We also have two options over here. Size. The size slider determines how big of an area we're going to work with. So that's that one. And I can make it really big, and it would cover my whole parcel. Okay. And the strength, of course, is how much strength is going to go into each click or individual unit of building. So if I want to, I can come in here and go to raise, and I can make it like that big, and I can jack my strength up really high, and when I click, I'm going to end up with this monstrosity of a thing. So that's what happens when you do it really high. Ooh, look at that. Messy, messy, messy. But it certainly makes a mountain, doesn't it? Alright, so now we've got this gigantic mess in here. Let's learn how to start with flat land, because we really need to bring this back to the flat land. Okay? So what you're going to want to do is you're going to come in here, and you're going to go to your select tool or your build tool, and you're going to select a size, and you want to find an area of land that's basically about the size that you want it to be. Okay, so this is right here. This is an area that's about the size that it was before, about the level that it was before, and we're going to adjust our size slider so that it fits in there. And we want our strength to be about 50%. So a lot of the time you're going to use your tool, you want your strength to be around 50%. That gets the job done without creating these giant ugly mountains. Okay, so about 50%. And we're going to go to flatten. And all you're going to do is get on flatten and just move your mouse around. Okay, so I'm just moving my mouse around, and I'm going to get all this to flatten. Now, this is going to take a while because I made giant mountains. And if you have to do if you have to fix sort of an extreme mistake, sometimes you have to use an extreme fix. So I'll go ahead and boost my strength up a little bit, and that's going to make these mountains come down even faster. Now, as I clear out area, I can increase my size. So now I can get even a little bigger, and that will just allow me to get through this faster. There we go. So I'm just going to kind of flatten this, and because I only own the one parcel here, I can go right up to the edges and just fix it all and make it flat. And even though my size guides are hanging over the edge a little bit, they're not going to affect those other parcels. Now, some people, I will say this, some people turn on the ability for everybody to terraform. Maybe they have a friend helping them, and so they enable it so that everyone can terraform. That's a feature inside of Firestorm. Most viewers, I think, do not let you do that. So do be careful. Alright, so there we go. I've moved it all around. I've got this nice flat area to work with. Yay. So this is what we're going to start with. Let's go back into our tool, and let's explore a little more about what we can do. And we're going to go back to raise. Now, raise is a tool that gets used a lot. And what I usually see people doing, when I talk to people about terraforming, what they usually do is they go in, they choose raise, they set their size, that makes sense to them, they set their strength, that makes sense to them, and then with the mouse, they sort of go in and they hold down the left mouse button and they just sort of drag their mouse around like this, and maybe they think that's too slow, so they jack it up a little bit, okay, and they're just dragging their mouse around, and they get something like this. And that's not too bad, right? I mean, that works. So I've got this kind of nice little mountain area here, and that works okay. But I want to show you a different way to do it that will give you actually a little more control over using the tool. and will make things smoother in the long run. So let me go ahead and flatten this back out quick, and we'll do that again. Alright, so we're back to flat. This time what I'm going to do is, instead of choosing raise, I'm going to choose select land. And let's say that I want to put a hill over here in this corner up at the top of this parcel right here, where we just built. So with select land selected, I'm going to actually drag a shape of a square onto the ground. And depending on where you want your hill to be and how big you want it to be, you decide where you want to put this. I'm going to make it be about, I think, like four boxes. I click one there, drag over one to the right, and pull down, and I get 4 boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I don't know if you know this, but each region is actually divided up into these little meter-sized, meter-square boxes. There are, what is it, 60? I can't remember how many there are. 60? I don't remember. There's a whole bunch of these on a region, and each one of these has a certain number of prims. And so when you divide up parcels, depending on how many boxes you have, that's how many prims you'll get. Anyway, neither here nor there. So I'm doing 4 of these. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to select raise. So my area is selected. I click raise. I'm not going to worry so much about size, but I do care about strength. I'm going to make it 50%. And rather than dragging with the mouse with these arrows here, I'm just going to click apply. And notice that it raises it. Not only did it raise it, but it raised it evenly. It's got a nice slope to it. And I can click apply again. Again, it's still got a nice slope to it. And again, and again, and again, until I get the size of hill that I want. Let's say I want a pretty big hill. Alright. So now I've got this hill, and as we made it larger, you'll notice that it got less and less smooth. It got jaggedy. Oh, by the way, when you're terraforming, this is going to happen to you. Until the region realizes, the physics engine in the region realizes that you've made the hill higher, you're going to do this fun little bouncing thing. And once the physics engine catches up and says, oh, that's supposed to be way up there now, then you'll stop bouncing. So sometimes if you're building hills and terraforming, it's a good idea to fly. Alright, so I've got this gigantic hill in the corner now, and it got a little jaggedy. It's not quite as nice as it used to be. So we're going to take this same approach that we just did. We're going to come in here, we're going to put a box that's about 4 spaces wide, right at the top of our hill. And this time, instead of raising, we're going to go and choose smooth. And our strength is at 50% again. Although with smoothing, I usually go a little less than that. But you can play with it. And I'm going to click apply. And notice that my hill smoothed a little bit. And I can click apply a couple times. And you'll notice that it continues to get smoother and smoother. And you can also see here that I'm floating because the physics engine on the region still thinks the hill is that tall, even though I've made it smaller. But I'll fall down in a second to catch it once it catches up. So there I can make a nice sort of smooth hill. Now, once you've done that, you can come in back to your tool, and I'm going to go back to flatten. I'm going to make my size a little smaller, my strength a little higher. And I can come in here and I can carve out pieces of this hill by just flattening it down. And I'm just using the mouse now. I'm not using the apply button. Just using the mouse to sort of shape this hill the way I want it to be. And maybe I want it to look like that. And then when I'm done, I just go through and I select the whole hill and I give it 1 click of smooth, about a 1/4 strength. And that will just start to smooth it out. And sometimes you need a second click, but generally 1 will work. So I've got this really big hill here now. Now I can continue to build more hills next to this. I go back to my edit terrain, select land, and put one right here, go to raise, and maybe I just want this to be a smaller hill, about like that. And I come back over here, and I go to raise, and I'm going to increase my strength a little bit, and I'm going to make this a little bigger, like that. And maybe I come back right here and say, I want to raise this a little bit. There we go. Maybe something like that. I select my land, draw a big box around all of it, smooth about a quarter, and apply. And if you think it needs another one, hit it again. And now I've got these nice smooth hills right where I want them. And the same thing holds true for any of the tools. And if you want to lower something, you can come in and you can select land like that and choose lower. And I can go full strengthen just so you can see it. Boom. Way down there, super low. Right? And I can go here and click revert, and it's going to slowly bring it back up. Alright, so let's come up here and let's flatten this all out again and look at one other thing. So I'll go to flatten again. I'm going to need a pretty small area now because it's going to need some work. Actually, we're going to start over here. Alright, give myself a little space to work. Alright, and I'll make this a little larger. There we go. Oh, I don't want to bury myself. There we go. Alright. It would be terrible to get buried under my ground here. Okay, so let me just flatten these out the rest of the way. Get back to a nice starting point. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's just create a hill. So the parcel next to me has got this little area here that sticks up. And dealing with parcel boundaries and terraforming can be a bit of a pain because you don't have control over their side at all. What you can do is come to your side and draw a box like we did and smooth it. And that will bring your parcel up to match a little bit. Sometimes though what you need to do is raise it a little bit so that it can match up. And then we'll hit it with a smooth, just to smooth it out. So you can do things like that. Now, I will say this, if you want to come in and edit the terrain and use the raise tool like this and just sort of, you know, build up your own sort of little hill range like this, you can do this. It works fine. Okay, and you can go through and build these up. But the real secret is, once you're done, just draw that box around it. 1/4 strength, apply a smooth. Just smooth it back out. It will keep your terrain textures from getting all stretched like this. And I think just really makes the land and the parcel look a ton nicer when it's nice and smooth like that. And you'll get a sense over time for how much smoothing you want to do and what you want it to look like. Okay, those are the ways to use the terrain tool. I mean, literally that's all there is to it. You know, if you want rougher ground, you can select your land and go to roughen and apply, and that kind of is a, sort of it's a raise, but it doesn't do the raise evenly, so it'll raise different areas at different levels. I almost never use revert. Smooth I use all the time, and the others, you know, generally make sense. So we'll let the region catch up here. Okay, so I want to talk next a little bit about landscaping then. So that's terraforming. What do we want to do with landscaping? I follow generally 3 rules when it comes to landscaping. The first rule is don't overdo it. It's really tempting to grab trees from 5 or 6 of your favorite stores and put them all out on your parcel. And it looks really nice having all those varied trees. The problem with that is if you have 5 or 6 different stores with 5 or 6 different trees, you're downloading 5 or 6 times the amount of terrain data or texture data from all those trees. And trees have lots of faces on them and can have lots of different textures depending on who did the tree. So you can end up with a lot of textures to download. So I generally stick to 1 or 2 different types of trees. I tend to stick to trees from the same store because they tend to complement each other. Maybe all botanical, maybe all heart, depending on what you're looking for. And maybe mix in just 1 or 2 trees from another store if I want some variety. But you want to keep it simple. And the same thing holds true for grasses and plants and things like that. You're far better off reusing the same bush, maybe with different colored flowers or something like that across your parcel. Maybe different sizes, different shapes, different rotations, things like that. Then you are going with lots of different types of bushes, again, because it's really easy to overdo it when you're landscaping and end up with too much and have a parcel that really is just laggy. My parcel over here can be kind of harsh on people that get into it as it is. As you can see, I use 2 different types of trees. Right now I have these trees here, which I think are from Heart, yeah, and then I have these trees with the lights, which are from Botanical. But if you look at the bushes that I'm using, I've got a lot of these heart bushes, and I'm trying to reuse the same bush again and again and again as a backdrop, as a filler, because it means it's less textures that need to be downloaded. So if 2 bushes, like these 2 right here, this one has the pink flowers and this one has no flowers, but the leaf texture on both of them is the same. The only difference is this pink texture. So I try to keep it as consistent as I can, and don't overdo it. So that's rule number 1: is don't overdo it. Try to keep the amount of things that you use to a minimum. The second thing is to think about nature, and think about how things sort of grow in nature, and try to bring that to your landscaping and Second Life. So generally, the way I like to approach that is to group things together in what I call clumps. If you look around, in wooded areas, forests are of course a little bit different since there's so many trees, but if you look in parks and wooded areas and things like that, generally there's some sort of anchor. That anchor could be a small pond or a lake. It could be a rocky outcropping. There's something there that anchors stuff to the ground, that prevents over time water from blowing it away, wind from blowing it away, things like that. So there's some reason that things grow up around that area. In Second Life, I tend to choose rocks to do that. Because I think that they're a nice, easy tool to work with, and there's lots of rocks around that you can get. I just need to find mine, because I have my home and garden stuff divided between 2 spaces still. Alright, so we're going to go ahead, and I'm just going to put out one of the boulders from Studio Sky, and I'm just going to put it right here in this corner. Alright, so this is going to be our first anchor, okay? And we can use a really big one like this. It comes in different sizes. We can use a slightly smaller one for our purposes. And so I'm going to take that and I'm just going to embed it in the ground a little bit, because rocks are never right on top of the ground, really. I mean, sometimes they stack on top of each other, but a lot of times they're embedded in the ground like that. And then don't forget to hold down your control key and turn this. See which way it fits best into your landscape. Do I want it facing at the hills that I built there on the edge, or do I want it maybe facing away like this a little bit? And sometimes you can hold Control Shift and make it a little bigger, a little smaller. Remember, when you make mesh objects bigger or smaller, the land impact can change. And don't assume that just because you made it smaller, it will actually make the land impact less. Sometimes the opposite is true. So always watch that land impact number as you resize to make sure you're not turning this 1 or 2 land impact boulder into a 5 or 8 land impact boulder. Alright, so that's going to be our anchor. And then we're going to build things up around that anchor. So I'm going to go back over here, because I'm going to work with stuff from Heart. Heart's been doing amazing work lately in Mesh, and they've got tons and tons of new stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some trees, and I'm going to start by putting out some trees. And I've got, let's see here. There we are. I've got these pines, and I'm going to go ahead and put out a sapling and a mature tree and another mature tree, just to grab a few of these things out. All right, so there they are, and then I just want to line them up around my anchor. And just drag them into where they want to go. Look for natural areas in the rock, because remember, the trees will grow. If you think about a forest, the trees will grow right up next to those rocks. And they'll end up with a bare spot on the side, and that's not going to actually happen in Second Life, but you can let the tree go into the rock a little bit. But you're just trying to line them up and just get a nice starting point to look at. All right, so there's our little clump of trees surrounded by the rock. And then we can go in and just fill in the rest. So let's go ahead and add some ferns. And I've got some ferns here somewhere. There we go. And they have these single ferns and these groups of ferns. So I'm just going to drag a fern out and see what it looks like. And that's not a bad grouping. I'm going to kind of move these into place. And when you're landscaping, you want to get in really close, because you don't want your landscape to be hovering. So see how these are hovering there? I don't want that. I want them to be in the ground. I want them to look right. So I'm going to go ahead and angle this a little bit. I'm holding down the control key. Just angling these a little bit. And rotating them a little bit so they're not stuck too much inside the rocks. And I'll go ahead and lower them down a little bit. Okay. So that works out okay. And let's go ahead and add some undergrowth to that. Go ahead and add a large area of clovers under it. And the nice thing about mesh, as opposed to sort of the old prim stuff we had, is it is so much easier now to start to layer these landscape materials right on top of each other. So we'll do that, and let's go ahead and add in some bushes. And I'm going to go ahead and add just a white Queen's Maiden bush here. And these have, let me show you the shape on these. So these have sort of this great bent over shape to them. So here's where the branch is right here, sticking into the ground, and the rest of the bush is angled. And so you can take these and you can actually angle them over your rocks. So I'm going to come back here, I'm going to move it around. And when you're landscaping, you gotta do this from all these different angles, right? You gotta look at this from all these different angles, because you want to see, how does this look? How can I get this to sit out there the right way? Is it sitting in the ground the right way that I want? How does it look? Remember, plants especially, they in a forest, they get stuck under leaves and brambles and other stuff all the time. They grow underneath stuff. So it's perfectly okay to have some of these leaves stuck into the ground texture like that. Alright, so we got that growing up over the top. And let's just add in a couple of other flower patches just to get this finished out. So we'll add some foxgloves. These are nice tall plants. And again, we're going to put these, I guess maybe we'll put these right here. And we're going to angle them up a little bit because they're on a hill. Move them back like so. And again, I want to kind of zoom in on the bottom here, make sure I've got them in the ground the way I want. And let's add one more. Let's go with I don't know. I got these bunchberries the other day. These are pretty neat. Let me show you what these look like. These are big patches of ground. These were at, I think, Famished. Heart tends to do a new thing for each round of Famished. And these are a great way to cover up a bunch of ground. Anyway, so second rule is build these bunches. So you're trying to get just this one thing to look the way you want it to look. And if we jump back over to my parcel here, you'll see that I've got a whole bunch of these. So I've got this area right here, and I built it up. And they don't have to be super fancy. They can be really, really simple. Here is just a tree with a fallen tree next to it. Here's this half tree, a tree with a bush on top of it. They don't have to be super fancy. This one back here is a lot fancier. It's got these flowers in front of it, and it's got some hostas back there, and I think I did something similar over here with some hostas and a bush, etc. So you want to build these clumps of stuff up. So the third rule I have, and I want to share with you for landscaping, is don't feel like you have to cover the entire parcel. Choose a ground texture that looks natural enough that you'd be okay with it being open. Just get into your mind that this is meant to be grass. It's maybe really short grass, it's been mowed, or it's been trampled on by people and animals from walking on it. Whatever it takes in your mind to think about this, but don't try and cover absolutely everything up. If you do, it tends to look a bit junked up, and it tends to get more and more laggy. So if you're having problems with lag on a region, try and cut down on the amount of landscaping stuff you're doing. I'm going to go ahead and add out some of these May-apples because I think they're another really nice thing from Heart as well. I'm going to kind of dump these into here a little bit, about like that. All right. Alright, so I've got this here, I've got my rock, I've got my trees, I've got this little thing. Now, what you can do, if you want to, is take parts of this that you like. Let's say maybe you like that tree there, and you like being near the rock, and you love how these bayberries turned out. So you can select those things, and as long as your landscape materials are copy, you can just make a copy of them, like that, and rotate them around, like so. And you've just duplicated your landscape. And then you can add additional things to improve that clump and make it a little bit more different. Maybe you decide, oh, you know, that rock is not perfectly positioned now that I can see the tree trunk, so I'm going to move it like that, like so, and just move the tree a little bit just to adjust it for its new positioning. But yeah, rather than having to keep dragging more and more stuff out, reuse what's there. Now you're only downloading this texture once for both rocks, once for both trees, and you'll end up with something that looks really nice, but isn't going to kill your frame rates because, well, it may kill your frame rate, but at least it's not going to kill your texture download. Okay, what else do I want to talk about? I mean, so it's so much about experimentation. Like I said, when you're putting this stuff out, if you set it and forget it, you're doing it wrong. Come in here and shift these things around and see what you can edit to make them smaller, to adjust them. When you're looking at sort of these big clumps of things, don't forget about your build tools. So this right here is actually a collection of a couple of different things together. You can do some fun things by choosing Edit Linked. When you have it selected, go to Edit Linked and click on just one part of it. Maybe you can make these flowers in that area taller to differentiate those from the other ones that you did. Or maybe you just want to move them a little bit because they got stuck under something that you didn't expect, like that. They're stuck on the side of that hill, so I don't want them in the hill. It doesn't do me any good to have a bunch of flowers that people can't see. So I can rotate this. And so I'm taking advantage of this grouping that Heart has put together, but I'm modifying it and making it different in this one case just for me. Which is a nice way to do it. Again, just edit it and go to Edit Linked, and a lot of these things are linked together, and you can drag them and make them taller and smaller and do all sorts of fun stuff with them. But yeah, but keep looking around. Make sure things are right. So notice how when we move this tree out here, the tree was stuck in the rock. But of course, the way that it sits here, because the rock is mostly underground and next to this hill, it doesn't look like it is quite as much. So yeah, I love landscaping. I think it's a lot of fun. It's super relaxing to build this stuff up, and you learn a lot about design, I think, but you learn a lot about how the build tools work in Second Life, and you get a lot of experience rotating and moving things and dragging them around and getting them the way that you want. And another thing is, don't be afraid to use something that is meant to be one way in a totally different way. So like right here, this is meant to be a tree, right? An upright tree. But there's nothing that says I can't make a copy of that turn it upside down. Maybe drag it around a little bit like this. And bury it partially in that hill and make it look like a tree that fell. No reason we can't do that. I feel a little bit like Bob Ross. These happy little trees can just live here in our forest and we can do whatever we want. But that's really what it is. And you've got to get used to your camera. Hold down the Alt key and just move all around and just keep making adjustments to it until you're happy. And if something isn't right, then pull it out and start over again. And play around with it. When it comes to buying landscape materials, there are just so many stores available doing it now. And there is a lot of benefit to shopping at stores like Heart and Botanical and Studio Sky and We're Closed and Habasuka and Happy Mood and all of the really popular landscaping stores. That advantage is that as people explore the grid, they're getting these textures in their viewers all the time. Just give a quick fly. Band lines. My two parcels are separated by band lines. So people are exposed to these textures all the time, and they're often in their cache already, which can help. But don't feel that you have to limit yourself in that way. Look around and see what's available out there. Go to other sims and right-click on what they have and edit and see where they got their stuff from when you find something nice. Same thing we do with clothes. And just explore it and have fun with it. And one last thing. You don't have to be realistic in Second Life. You don't have to follow the norm. Very few people would have a sofa sitting out on their patio without a cover over it because it would get soaked in the rain. Very few people would put this lamp and chairs and table in the middle of the woods with a little kitty and a balloon flying above them. But you can here, and you should here. It's cool to make things natural, but don't forget that it is a virtual world, and things can have a little bit of whimsy to them as well. And they probably should, because I think that's what makes things unique and fun. And a lot of the things that get built these days are sort of built with that in mind. Yeah, if you come back behind this house here, this is where I have my still. And my little gnome with his go away sign. Because we don't want people knowing what we're doing back here. Anyway, so this is my parcel, and that's a little bit about landscaping and how I approach it. And I hope this is useful to people and informative to people, because it is something that that's really fun to do. So if you have questions about it, please reach out to me or comment on this video. If you like this video, please do subscribe. I'm getting a lot more subscribers, which is awesome, and I'm starting to see more comments, and I'm really trying to be good about replying to all of them in a timely fashion, although sometimes I forget. But I am getting better at it, and so please do like the video, subscribe, and if you have questions, feel free to ask them in the comments or get with me in World, and I'd love to talk about this stuff and where I've got stuff from and my ideas behind it. And how to make it good, and etc. etc. So have fun, everybody. Happy landscaping, happy decorating, and I will talk to you all in the next video. Bye now.